So here's the thing, I want to structure this in a way to talk about what's happening right now, overall in the corporate space where people matters become important. And then I also want to talk about stuff like the challenges that we all face, okay? And basis that, what is the future of work, and therefore what are the competencies that we need to understand and know about. And this is going to be slightly, some people may not like it because I'm just going to call it the way it is, all right? So I understand a lot of you are HR professionals. Please disagree with me at the end, challenge what I say, and I'll be happy even if you could just take 1 out of the 10 things that I talk about and implement that at your workspace. Very simply put, I think the way our setup right now is that there's a certain objective that we all carry in some way or the other. I think all of us as HR professionals, we are trying to reimagine HR, isn't it? We are saying, how can we do 360s differently? How can we get rid of 9 boxes? And just in case if you were curious, if I was not the CHRO, then who was I? I call myself the guy who's disrupting HR. I go into everybody's office and I ask them questions, why do you do stuff the way you do? Because this is like 40-year-old practice. And the classic example is performance management, right? And we'll talk a bit about that. The end of the year, judge and jury, somebody comes, gives a verdict. So we really need to reimagine HR. And I think we are being challenged, all of us are being challenged to say that how can we make HR in a way which is for the people, of the people, and by the people. Why do HR have to write policies? Why can't our people write their own policies? Okay, so that's what I say is pretty much our objective. We need to rethink everything. It's not just about processing payrolls anymore. I guess the reason we need to rethink is because of the changing HR landscape, which I said. Now, if you look at this is pretty much what our challenges are today. And please, please disagree with me if you want to. If you look at any kind of an organization, we have a big challenge with data. I want to know data. I want to correlate data, but I do not have the true visibility. And if you go to a large-scale organization, I'm sure Sutherland also faces some bit of that problem, although you guys are a well-established IT setup. Landmark, for example, I work with Landmark. I know the challenges that we've got. We have multiple disparate systems. You have a performance system, then you have a FICO or a finance system sitting somewhere, then you have a quality management system, you have a supply chain system. All of these are different systems. Unfortunately, they're not talking to each other. If I had to, through the system, derive and, that's why ERPs and all came into existence, but they still do not do that job. So we have a challenge of data. We do not have the true data available to us. Then we have a challenge of reporting because you don't have data, so you don't know how to report. And that is why a lot of us, day in and day out, are just working on Excels. You would not believe it. I know, as I said, some of us may not like what I say. The fact is that all of these industry leaders sitting here would agree to me that even today, a lot of our people are doing VLOOKUPs and XLOOKUPs and doing stuff that ideally the system should solve. Excel is still our favorite tool. We haven't moved on. So much talk about AI, we're still on Excel, yeah? And then there is a risk exposure. So people who are looking at, multi-geography kind of a setup, compliance is a big pain. We acquired a company called Whitelist very recently. I was brought in actually for this acquisition from my previous organization. I've been struggling with compliance. I've been struggling with work council in EU, European Union. They're very finicky about how you deal with data, how you deal with employee records. We say we will do NLP. We will read employee records and we will throw some analytics. EU says you're not doing any of that sort. You cannot read an employee record. Now, if I cannot read an employee record, how am I supposed to drive intelligence? So there are many such challenges around. And then you have manual processes and work. I don't want to talk about it. You talk to an HRBP, they say, you call me an HR business partner, but all that I'm doing is a personal concierge to all the employees, where the employees ask me, okay, can you tell me what's my leave balance? And then you go around and you find out the leave balance. Can you tell me how many leaves am I entitled to for maternity and paternity? Are there any HRBP sitting in this room? Okay, do you all agree, disagree? Yeah, okay, I see that. Right, so we're still stuck on those manual processes. And then you have security around data. I think there is a new law which is coming in India, which is going to be quite equivalent to the GDPR, that you have in the other countries. And that's when the, stuff hits the ceiling. And you have employee frustration at the end of the day who say, hey, HR just does Rangoli, man. And then you have all these memes and all of this coming out, yeah? This is our life, okay? And we need to handle this. We need to get smarter. We need to be not just people who are policing and copying and, doing all of that, but we need to do more. Now, what do we do? There's one more problem that a lot of us have not admitted to. And I wish there were all the students that GIBS has, because they would love this point. There's a problem of the old guard versus the new guard that we are facing. Yeah? I'll tell you what that means. Some 70 million boomers. You understand boomers? Old school boomers. Mr. Goyal is not a boomer, he's a millennial. But yeah, boomer is also state of mind, by the way. It's not necessarily an age. So, there's 70 million boomers who's going to exit. They're going to retire this decade. The supply is of 150 odd millennials and Zs. Okay? Now, suddenly what's happening is that in every organization there is a crisis. The guy who's got there with about 15, 20, 25 years of experience, there are people who've been in an organization for decades. They see a young, graduate from a GIBS kind of an institute, and they come and they say, well, no, this is not how it's done. I know design thinking. There's a different way to do this. And this person who's like been there forever, he says, what is design thinking? Don't teach me. This company, I am the one who's brought it to where it is. And this poor guy who's just come out thinking, oh, mereko to design thinking was the thing that you told me, but they're not even listening. And what happens? To your point, diversity, right? This is the generational diversity that you work on, right? And we have so many challenges around that. I call this the battle of the old guard versus the new guard. We got to acknowledge this, and we have to handle this. If we do not, we have a bigger problem coming in over the next 4 or 5 years. I'll admit, my organization faces this. And we are a traditional organization, 40 years making medicines. My CEO has always been in Biocon. 26 years he's been in Biocon. And if I get somebody who's like a fresh MBA grad and goes, oh, Mr. Shehaz, this is not how it is done, well, it's not going to be a good conversation. And then we have people within the organization who I call the MIBS and the MIBS, which is millennial in a boomer's body or millennial in a Z's body. I think Mr. Goyal, I can 100% say by the kapra that he wears that he's a millennial in a Z's body, right? Or a millennial in a Z's thinking. So there are those kind of issues. So you cannot definitely stereotype people with age, but there is a certain clash of thinking, due to which what is happening is that you're seeing a lot of conflicts. This next slide, I'll just kind of, stop the storytelling and everything and move to hardcore, what we need to do after this one. I think what's happening is that, we are going phygital. I mean, look at the generation, whatever age, people are comfortable using Facebook, Instagram, Threads, blah, blah, blah. And then, when you bring in an HR guy like me who says, oh, we need to have apps, and then I hear stories, and I'm sure all of us have heard, people are not ready. And then we create complicated HR systems, whether it's Workforce, Workday, SAP, Oracles, etc., etc. And then we go on training people how to use these systems. Who trained us how to use Facebook? Who trained us how to use Instagram? Yeah? No one. We just got it. So why can't HR systems be exactly like that? Okay, why can't we go more digital? But I'm not saying that you do not go or you forget your empathy. Okay, our HR as HR, we still need to have that human connect, and that's why I call the physical and the digital, therefore the phygital. Okay, you got to get there. Then hyper customization. Nobody likes, the all size fits all nahi chalta anymore. It doesn't work. I'll give you an example. I alluded to it earlier. Assume that you are a 23, 24-year-old person who's just joined an organization, and I give you a benefit as an HR policy. You know what? Your child education is what the company will sponsor. How does that matter to you? It doesn't. What possibly matters to you, do you give me a dating allowance? Yeah, or a birthday allowance? Yeah, and the vice versa. And we know, now we've got better at this, okay? But we used to have these standard benefits, chipkao sabko. So that's hyper-customization, hyper-personalization that you will hear a lot about. We keep talking about it. Realism, not idealism. I'm sorry, this is a little controversial, but a lot of us have been brought saying that, values, culture, ideals. I have full respect to all of that. But you know what? Talk to the generations that work today in our offices. They say, all that is good, but be real. You say that your culture has to be here, but what is your culture here? There's an ideal state and there's a real state. People want you to be authentic, and I keep saying this again and again and again. Somebody would have heard culture eats breakfast for strategy, etc. A nice quote. I keep saying, no, authenticity. Authenticity eats everything else. You have to be authentic. Not perfect, authentic. All right? And then there is an impatience Okay, I don't know if you have any learning and development people here. Guys, gone are those days when, you could dump people. I'm not saying academia, okay? You still need to go through that. But, gone are those days where you could put people into a room for hours and hours or days and train them on things. It doesn't happen. Everybody's got ADHD, whether you believe it or not, thanks to Insta. Insta's also got 30-second reels now, right? So it's all about, and this is the way it is. Good, bad, ugly, I don't know. I'm no one to judge, but this is the reality. I have done tests, and I'm sure all of you also have, where you've got people in the room, 3 days ka program, great feedback, 1 week everybody, yeah, this was the best thing ever. 2 weeks later, I've forgotten everything. Yeah? So there is impatience. You got to handle that. And then, and this is basically what COVID taught us, productivity over presentism. Nobody gets it. A lot of people like me who've been doing this corporate slavery for many years, we still go early because I need to get early, punch in, punch out. My boss is not gone, how can I go? Right? A lot of this has changed. No, I mean, some organizations, not every, okay, but it exists, okay, it exists, let's face it. So productivity is more important than presentism. It's difficult to digest, especially for people like me, all right? Now, in that kind of a changing landscape, a lot of things have happened. I am cognizant of the time that I have, but I'll give you two use cases. What you see as a slide there are all the tactical changes that we need to carry out in HR. And I don't have like hours and hours to cover this, but I'm just going to talk about two, okay? And this should wake all of us up and should give you an insight at all the kind of skills that you need now. So let's talk about performance management. Our favorite subject is HR, right? What do we do? At the end of the year, there is a judge. Who's the judge? Boss. And there's a jury, the HRBP and all the other performance management heads and all that. And what do we do? Mr. Vikas, good, bad, ugly. Rating, that's what we do. Is that fair, really? I mean, what was performance management all about? It was about managing performance, not judging performance. When did it become judging? Okay. So then 10 years back, some people got very smart, people like me, and they said, listen, this doesn't work, judge and jury. Annual doesn't work once in a year. You go continuous. So instead of being a judge and jury once in a year, now we are judge and jury every few quarters or every few months, or in some cases every day. But we're still not solving the problem. We're still judging. How do I make this reactive event to a proactive event? And that's where things like enterprise performance management helps. And this is complicated. It's not as simple. But I'll just give you a use case. I have a very interesting use case for Landmark, but I'll leave it for you. But in all the organizations that I was working with, this is what we did. There were salespeople, right? There are salespeople everywhere, all commercial organizations. This salesperson in the morning, every day at 8:30, would get a nudge. Okay, nudge, you understand nudge? Notification bolo. But we had a chatbot, so a nudge, which would say, hey Vikas, your daily run rate for today is 100 dirhams or 100 rupees, okay? But you'll not be able to do it. You're only going to be able to achieve 80 rupees. Why? Because that's the predictive modeling that is happening, predictive analytics that is happening. Only 80 rupees. This 20 rupees, you can cover up by talking to Mr. Goyal, who's got 7 leads in his funnel, and if he's able to pass them on to you and you're able to convert them, you are protecting your KPI for the day. Who's saying this? Not the manager, not the HR, it's the system that is saying this. Okay, not exactly the way I said it, but in a better way. Now what's happening? Now, we are basically managing that individual's performance for the day, which was supposed to be our job, right? And if this happens, the KPI is protected. What is the end result for the organization? Your organization's objectives are met. The system throws out the rating, the human does not. I know some of you must be thinking, what about soft skills, softer factors? We come there. Ask me that question at the end. But this is how you drive enterprise performance management. What do you have to do? You got to have data lakes, you need to have the right technology, you need to have the right KPIs. We don't have the right KPIs in our organizations, right? Great KPIs, okay, last 25 years I've been reading these. Some people have KPIs saying, I will move the performance, the needle on my performance this year. That's my KPI. Okay, then move the needle to where and by how much and on what? No answers. These are intent statements. Some KPIs are project plans. They are not smart KPIs, okay? So enterprise performance management solves for this. We don't have enough time, but I'm just giving you a snippet. You won't find this on Google. If you go to Google, you find a very different version of EPMO, which is led by finance, which is all about analytics. But the minute you do predictive and prescriptive analytics, that's where, and you leave HR to manage this for the whole organization, that's where EPMO comes in. The other interesting use case that a lot of people have now started warming up to in India as well is skills center of excellence. I'm sure everybody's heard. Skill-based organization. So, you know, I'll tell you what is the impact of looking at skills. Not the skills that HR writes, like competencies and all of that. Big fan of competencies, but I don't believe in them. All right? Competency is equal to knowledge, attitude, skill, habits, cash, remember? So I'm talking about that S in between, skills. You have technology today which goes and scrapes the internet and says Mr. HRBP, for you, Pfizer kind of a company and Amazon kind of a company, these are the skills that you are chasing. So you have technology which tells you that. Now if you start assessing your people on those skills, you start measuring those skills, what is the end result? One use case I'll leave you with. Again, back to performance management. At the end of performance management, what are the two things that we do? Increments and promotions, right? When promotion conversations are happening, what happens? Real time. Manager sits, the HR sits, and they decide promote karne ka hai ki nahi karne ka hai. What is the data that management and the HR has? Tenure. Number of years. Usko a fancy term mein role maturity is also what we call it. And then you have rating, right? Good, bad, ugly. And then you have what? You have some 9 boxes and 360s and all of that. And most importantly, you have intuition and gut. And then favoritism and the plethora of biases. Okay? But what is that one data that you really need and you don't have? That one data is that the role that I need to promote this person into, does this person have the skills for those roles? That data you don't have. So you take calculated risks and estimation. Skill Center of Excellence solves for that. Complicated because there's a lot of technology at play here. This is not about inward but external. All of this can happen through systems. There are many technologies, 8fold.ai, Beamery, Glowed, Spot Mentor. They all do this. India is still waking up to it. It's been about 11, 12 months that I've seen Spot Mentor picking up some traction here. But a lot of organizations have not started doing this properly, okay? It's a difficult one because people don't get it. It's change management at the heart of it. So if these were the kind of journeys that you were talking about, and then on Google we keep reading things like AI, LLMs, and I keep saying that HR is going to get disrupted big time in the next 2 to 3 years. There's a tsunami coming with the whole LLM experience. You know, large language models, the chat GPTs, etc. If somebody was to really think about it, you really don't need an HR to do job descriptions anymore. All right? That goes away. And there's much more that you can do. I don't want to talk about it, it might scare you. But the fact is, if this is all that we had to do to prepare ourselves for the future, then what is that we need in terms of skills and all of that? So I said before I get to skills, because again, that's something you can Google, let me tell you what is the DNA of an HR that we need to have. And I love this slide. This I learned from Mr. Savita Jagtiani, who's a part of the Jagtiani family, who's part of the ownership of Landmark Group. Savita taught me this. He said, Vikas, when I look for people, you know, this is the kind of things that I look for, and these are the kind of people who work. I think what you read here is kind of the core of it, okay? You clearly need accountable and problem solvers. Everybody knows that, cliched as hell. But you need people who are forward thinking, driven and competitive. In HR, you can't have people who are like a yes man to everything, and that's the problem. We have become order takers. Talk about the talent acquisition function. All that we do is we go, somebody says this is the JD, this is the level, and we go out, you know, chasing. Do we not question them and say, why can't we look at internal mobility before we look at external hiring, right? So we got to be competitive thinking. We need to be argumentative in a certain sense. We need to be able to partner with the business. For that, we need to understand business. And everyone here would agree with me that HR has to understand business. And it is not something that you will know. I mean, for me, this is like the 5th or 6th different industry that I'm working with. First time in pharma. For the last 1.5 years, I'm just trying to upskill myself on understanding pharma. I don't come from a pharma background. I come from a retail, an IT and e-commerce and stuff like that. But this is important for me. If I don't get it, I won't survive. We have to be open to new techniques. AI is not alien. If I was to say Python is an important skills for you, you should not be thinking, what? I'm HR. No, you should be like, okay, let me find out more. If I say that there are tools and environments available that you need to code on without knowing coding, like zero code and low code, it should increase your curiosity, not create a defense mechanism saying, no, this is not right. Okay? So you should be open that way. You should love doing things for the first time without much guidance. Doesn't happen. And I can tell you from my experience, and I don't know if you agree or not, I love people who work with me who say, Vikas, we'll just get it done. And then there are people who work with me who say at every step of the task, they need a validation, they need an instruction, You know, I would prefer the first one, isn't it? Somebody who's a go-getter. And then you have to be able to, get excited about tech and product and everything. And I just put one little one there. Poor dressers at work like me who don't know how to suit, boot, and wear ties and stuff like that. So if you look at the competencies, very simple. And I'm just going to shut up after that, and you can ask me questions. On the left-hand side is what you need to know. That's your base, core HR. If you do not understand succession planning, if you do not understand all of that stuff that's there, I don't even get into HR. I'm not saying you need to understand everything in detail. The T-skills principle, you have depth and then you have range. So that's how you need to adopt. Choose your core, if it's TA or whatever. But I very strongly feel that more and more going forward, generalists are going to be, big in demand. Somebody who could do the length and breadth of HR and then specialize into something in a certain sense. And the right side, you see digital skills. And I keep saying, HR now is equal to tech is equal to marketing. You are not HR anymore. If you do not understand tech, it's not going to work. If you do not understand marketing, it's not going to work. You might be wondering, why marketing? Tech to samajh mein aata hai because digital, everybody keeps talking about it. Why marketing? Because we don't do a good job of it. We make something, we make a product, we make a policy, but we don't promote it within the organization appropriately. We push it down people's throat. And I keep saying, and a lot of people would here, Ajay would agree with me, product thinking is important in HR. What is product thinking? Like you spoke about, right? You make a product. How do you make a product? Because you think of a customer's needs and all of that, right? And then you make a product. What is the next thing you do? You promote a product. What is the third thing you do? You keep reiterating the product, making it better and better and better. You'd never stop that journey, right? Look at us what we do. We write in policy, which is supposedly our product, and then we forget all about it. For next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Job architecture, classic example, right? UJRs banaye kabhi 10 saal pehle, now we've forgotten all about it. A lot of organizations have that problem. So you cannot have that problem. Therefore, you have to think like a marketeer, okay? You have to communicate and over-communicate. And I keep saying the message will not go till the time you're tired of talking. The day you get tired of talking the same thing, that's the first day that your customers actually heard you, all right? So those are the skills that you need. This is Google. Okay, this is not me. This is Google. All right. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions, because my time is up, if you have any questions, please go ahead and shoot. I love questions. Yes, please. Talks, I can think. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, I just have two questions. One is, as you said, that we have to move more towards digital concepts, right? Everywhere, like HR is being like tagged as like we are not generating business compared to tech field, right? So how much ever like we try through digital marketing to promote our HR concepts products, till when it comes to performance appraisal, HR is like least paid compared to any technical folks. So how can we actually like pitch in generating more revenue just like the techie folks and then create our own space there?
You're saying that how can HR drive value for the organization?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think
because what I generally have noticed is like HRs are like not really paid high as the technical folks.
How do HR generates value for HR? Like,
yes.
How do I earn more money?
How can we generate revenue for the
Straight question, simple. Listen, I was in that fix. This is a personal story, okay? 2009, 10, 11, I left NIIT, moved into an e-commerce startup, got a good HR opportunity, but I was still static. Then I got a fancy opportunity in Dubai, moved there, and I realized everything I knew was not relevant. So I tried upskilling myself. Okay, then I met some people. Josh Burson is my god, I follow him a lot. I started upskilling. And upskilling doesn't mean just necessarily doing an e-learning or, AIHR kind of program. It also means networking, coming to events like this, and then picking up something. And I picked up a thing, I called it HR transformation because that was a big thing in 2011-12. And I said, okay, this is going to be my niche. And I started learning coding. I started learning Python. That time Python was a very miniature version of Python, right? So I started doing all of that. And suddenly I was going with some predictive modeling in HR analytics, in people analytics to my boss. Okay, so I was like, whoa, what is this? I was like, yeah, we can do this. I was like, if this is the kind of visibility that you can draw for the group, then, our people issues are handled. So what did happen? Personal value, gone up, the value for the organization shown, all because of what? A little bit of upskilling. Okay, so, I mean, I've just learned this with experience that learning is a never-ending journey. Okay, you gotta keep upskilling, you will see your value go up. And then second is, just like I said, how do you promote and market that learning? If you're just going to learn something and go to your boss, I've got this certificate, nothing's going to happen. But you apply that learning to a real business problem, go with a POC or a solution and show this is what it is, maybe something will happen. Pick up some of this, pick up EPMO and go to your boss and say, this is what we're going to do. Maybe something will happen, and then your value, which is basically salaries, they go up. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Not really, okay.
Yeah.
You want more money, okay.
Yeah. No, it's not like I want more money, because when it comes to like the company, especially like when we work with the technical directors, the one thing what they say is like the technical folks are like billable resources. And when it comes to operations, like we are all like non-billable resources. And the revenue
NBAs.
generation is like quite nil, even though we do pre-sales or digital marketing whatsoever.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I'm saying. You are NVAs, non-value added assets. If you're not doing intelligent journeys like these, if you do an L&D program and you don't show the ROI on that L&D program, and ROIs is not to say that, oh, this many number of planned training days. So this is what I've done. I've mapped KPIs, okay, smart KPIs that we've spent a year just designing those KPIs, to skills, and those skills to learning. So every time a KPI level goes down, okay, there is a event that happens. Just say that this particular KPI has these 2 skills needed, all right? And it throws those 2 skills learning to this person. In some cases e-learning, in some cases a manager check-in. And once that is completed, ideally the KPI should go up. If it is not done, then there is a second consequence to say, speak to your manager, check in. Third consequence, move, repurpose. Now what is going on here? There's no human bias. It's all getting done through the system.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds simple. It's not as simple as this, because KPI and skills are they do not have a direct correlation, but they have an indirect one. But that is the kind of journey that you need to, because then you are adding value.
Exactly.
But if you're just doing, performance management at the end of the year to draw bell curves, they're basically solving finances problem, not people problem. All right? Yeah. So that's this whole thing that you saw, Ghumra, that's the thing that we need to do.
Thanks, Vikas. My second question is basically like, I'm not going to take much time, but my second question is like, we started right from 360, 180 whatsoever till normalization, bell curve, and then like we arrived now with AI, ML, like with lot more, right? So still people say like when we implement AI, ML, like the human touch is like missing.
Yeah.
So it's more into data, and like the human touch is like really missing, especially in the larger companies.
100%.
So I just wanted to know, like from all HR folks, is there any plugins which we can, inbuilt in AIML, where we can actually like have the data visible to the whole management, which we can actually map and then see?
It's not a straight question, straight answer, because different tools, different plugins, different AI engines, but don't go AI.
You have experienced.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Any tools?
Yeah.
Data through AI. What? So AI don't know what is the market outside. See, currently the report we use that today we will make it 100%. But if you look outside, of some not just something happen, it would affect the market across the globe. So you would be having the idea of the insight that okay, the AI is percentage of, but outside market is something completely different. So we know how the market will perform. So that's where we can provide insights, and that's where we can work. So how much our AI comes, the manual intervention or the human insights would be always required, and it always helps. So yeah.
Microsoft in 2017 launched this product called TAY, Thinking About You. It was an AI chatbot. In 24 hours, they had to shut it down. Why? Because the ML taught the model racial abuses, okay, and swear words. So the tool just read it. This is called unsupervised AI, which he's talking about. You need supervised AI. So everything in AI is also got a human touch. AI doesn't solve for the human problems. Okay, AI is an enabler, but AI is a very well abused word. My answer to the question is you don't need AI plugins, you need plugins. Okay, yes. Simple plugins, you need some analytic plugins. Yes. You can solve for it, you can ask me. Any other question? Otherwise,
Thank you Vikas.
You're welcome.
And thank you.
Yeah, there's just one person who had questions, right? Thank you. Oh, okay, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have mentioned, we need to promote the policy rather than, keeping them on the policy, like employees. See, usually employees are aware of the policies when they are in the organization, but also they won't put forward or they won't follow the policy. So it is the, you cannot say duty, but it is how the management usually follows. Like they will impress that you need to follow the policy. So employees will feel discomfort of following the policy. Can you give me the insight how can we promote those policies?
Why does a person not feel good about the policy? Is there something wrong with the policy?
I can give you an example. If there is a leave policy, which usually HR usually face this. Although it was mentioned in the leave policy, like you're not approved any leaves for certain training period. Also, they coming up with excuses which are not relevant, but they come up giving the approving the leaves. But how for being a fresher, we cannot impose on them that you need to follow them. But the idea is to promote, which you said, I actually like the idea to promote. But can you give me the insights how can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, see, I don't know how to solve your problem. I need more info, but I'll tell you a couple of things that work is that design your leave policy in a way which is conducive and let the employee own it. If the employee loses working hours, like ours is a manufacturing setup, it's easy in manufacturing. Even in billable kind of setups is easy. You don't do it, you don't get it, money, right? But then there are genuine reasons why people need policies, and at times you just are limited with your governance structure. So we started this year leave transfers and policy leave donations and things like that. So if one of my friends needs some leaves, his quota is over, I can give him 5 leaves from my kitty, take it, because not all leaves are encashable. We always lose some leaves at the end of the year. My CEO in the previous organization, the previous to previous organization, had a different view. He said, yeah, listen, if people are really finding a sense of purpose working where they are and they are gratified and they're fulfilled, then these leave policy issues become very, but if there is a genuine concern, it's not just the HR who has to decide. Let the person take leaves. No, I'm saying let them take more than the quota also. Just hear me out. Okay, what will go wrong? You think the system will get abused? Maybe. Some people, but repeated abuses you will be able to find. Read this Ken Blanchard book on customer success. He talks about Yum Foods. They said, we don't have a leave, our leave policy is we don't have a leave policy. Other than compliance, whatever leaves you need, you take. And they realize the Pareto, 20% people will abuse, you'll be able to identify them, repeated abusers, you'll be able to identify them, counsel them, move them away. But why make the other 80 suffer who actually genuinely, they are defined by the sense of purpose. But as I said, your question looks more complicated. We can take it up right now. Need to ask more, please. Do you want to answer that? Please. Okay.
So what he said, just open up, why you have a lead policy, right? And the way you market that and the way you position that is, we trust you. That's your marketing gimmick, right? We trust every employee in the organization. So you will take leave only when it is required. So when you put this trust angle in there, right? It's more calming for you saying my management trusts me. No. So right. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
This was just one example which we did. There are a lot of organizations who are actually stopping to use the word imposing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that word is so harming.
Even policy.
Leave policy.
Yeah, they stopped using policy.
Yeah.
Okay, small little books, playbooks. We say playbooks now. Yeah. Acha, I'm done. I'm sure everybody wants to talk. Okay, guys, it was a pleasure interacting with you. If you have more questions, please let me know. Thank you.